Hi, we're going to do a quick presentation storyboard of the design thinking work that we performed on an issue that the provost brought to us for transportation and getting students between classes for the institution. So let's dive right in. We had a survey that went out in 2020. The sample population was 30% of students, 10% of staff. We had a 67% response rate. The results from those responses were 30% commuters, 70% were on campus, 80% were split between campuses, and 65% of the overall response rate were unsatisfied with the inter-campus transportations. When we dive a little bit deeper, we start to find some more information. We started to review the data that was provided. We had a third party come in and help us analyze this information, and we found that the bus routes were too complicated to navigate with the stops and routes. There were not enough direct routes between campuses and classes, and it was subject to traffic delays. We also found that parking was limited availability on all the campuses, especially during peak times. We conducted a series of interviews. We interviewed about 85% of the population that responded to the initial survey. And out of that percentage, 85% of the students preferred in-person classes with a feeling of being seen and heard by the instructor, small group working with classmates to develop those critical skills for communication in their professional lives, and interacting with this instructor and getting direct feedback were the main reasons that those students preferred in-person classes. 50% of the faculty that we interviewed preferred in-person classes, citing that they felt disconnected with students and that their subject matter was difficult to translate to the online platform. Because they had pre-recorded or pre-defined lectures or manipulatives or whiteboarding that just did not translate well to the online format. So we kind of started to ask the team, how do we solve this? What are the innovations that we can bring to the table to make our students and faculty and staff life a little better? They kind of fell into three major categories. So the first category was a transportation, adding more transportation to try to alleviate this problem by adding institutional taxis or a high-speed train between campuses, or Zipcar. If you guys aren't familiar with Zipcar, it's a ride program where you have cars that are parked on the campus. They can go into the app, check out a car, drive it to the next campus, leave it there, and the next person can pick that car up and drive it. All of these were kind of reviewed. There's a pretty high investment cost in these, and the liability on these were, again, pretty significant risk to the university. The second section that was the main that came out of this was changing the class, changing the modality of classes to be hybrid to allow for instructors to have the lectures and manipulatives offered throughout multiple class periods, bringing in smaller sections of students across different times to allow for them to continue with this modality that they're used to, and at the same time bring in the online modality, allowing for that to be kind of an asynchronous experience for the students. Um, it's a lot of moving parts. It was very complicated. There's a lot of administrative overhead for that. Um, Adding new class offerings to all the campuses so that students and faculty don't have to travel between campuses. So offering every class on every campus. Again, there's some major investment from the institution that would have to happen here. We would have to hire more faculty and have more class space. Uh, and it wasn't really a feasible thing. Um, Adding core courses to all campus and having each campus specialize in a major. We kind of start to do this already today, and we try to offer this, but again, we run into space utilization issues and resource issues with our faculty. So again, this was something that we could continue to try to manipulate and do, but it's not working for us today. And the third section was how do we move forward? How do we bring technology into the picture to alleviate some of this? And some of the suggestions that came out of this were virtual reality classrooms or augmented reality classrooms, or implementing the Harvard CS0 virtual classroom model, where in which you have an instructor in class uh, who is presenting through a digital platform to the students. There are screens out in the where the students would normally be seated, with all the students live streaming into the class, so that the instructor can have direct view at those students and respond to them quickly, and still give the instructor the ability to work with their manipulatives and their whiteboards and their predefined lectures and those kinds of things, which is a little bit of an augment to the online classrooms that we currently have. In reviewing all of these, we started to figure out how do we evaluate this and prototype uh, what ideas that we want to bring to the table. And the biggest thing that came out of it was that we decided to focus a lot on this third area. Um, by moving the classes to an online format with augmented reality and a mix of the CS0 presentation style from Harvard, we're allowing our students to have class anywhere. Um, they bring their own device because it's powered off of their cell phone. It works with our current classroom infrastructure with minor modifications. There's a low learning curve in adoption for this for the faculty and for the students. It's not much different than the Zoom platforms they're in today outside of the actual experience of being in that augmented or 3D rendered virtual classroom. It has a fairly high adoption rate. So, with all these things considered, our recommendation moving forward was to move into the virtual reality, augmented reality classrooms uh, to provide some training for our faculty, staff, and students, provide our students as part of their institutional technology fees the headset so that they can slide their phone into the headset as part of the application to do the virtual and augmented reality classes, and kind of start with a pilot test on this with some of our entry level survey classes and eventually roll this throughout the campus. Um, and I'm going to open the floor up for questions about the process and how we got to this and those kind of things. The evaluation that we conducted, the analysis, the prototyping, um, and concerns or issues.